Hello, a very good day to you wherever you're watching us from. This is Smart24 TV. We drive your business and you're watching financial markets right about now. Of course, it's a Tuesday, the 18th of October, and definitely we bring you the fresh and live information coming in from the financial markets world around the globe, on the continent, at the regional level, and in Uganda in particular, helping you to make use of your savings in order for you to get a return. And of course, the show is proudly brought to you by Altex East Africa, your #1 private stock exchange in East Africa. They will give you bonds across East Africa in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania at very favorable interest rates. Now, with their partnership with MTN, you can access all these and more by simply dialing *292# and definitely getting into the business of trading on the treasury bonds that are coming in with very attractive interest rates at Altex East Africa. Altex markets open at exactly 15 minutes past the hour of 8 a.m. and close at 15 minutes past the hour of 3 p.m. My friend, thank you very much for joining me. It's a Tuesday, and of course, we're looking at the trading from last Monday, that is yesterday, as well as opening the markets today at, of course, exactly 9 a.m. here in Uganda. But before we go there, we would like to, of course, cross over to the United States of America. And looking at the stock market on the United States scene, we are seeing that on Monday, the market soared, buoyed by the round of solid bank results and a reversal of the tax cut plans for the United Kingdom as well. Now, as investors assembled, of course, for the big week for corporates, the stock markets in the US have continued to appreciate even this morning. Now, the S&P 500, that is the GE SPC, closed at a gain yesterday. And as we speak now, it's still on a gain and numbers are moving upwards, meaning at least there's a good picture on the United States stock market after a very long week, last week, of course, ending with most of the Dow Jones and the S&P 500 indices on the losing side. But at least for now, we're seeing a very wonderful market activity there on the United States. Now, the Dow Jones index also gained by close to about more than 550 points last day of trading. That was Monday, or rather a 1.9% appreciation there on the United States market. And then the technology-heavy Nasdaq Composite gained by about 3.4 last of trading. That was Monday. And so at the moment, we are still green figures moving upwards, generally speaking. And of course, investors are now very optimistic about 2023, depending on how you're viewing things at Wall Street at the moment. The US stock market communicates a lot about the economy of the United States and the global economy. Of course, many speculators and people around investment were anticipating a recession, at least within 2023 or at the end of the year 2022. But the stock markets are seeing, of course, a different picture being painted at the moment on the US stock market. The Bank of America, that is BSE, was the penultimate of the country's 6 largest banks by assets to report earnings on Monday, and also shares rose more than 6% after the company revealed trading revenue that beat Wall Street estimates. The stronger than expected results from the Bank of New York Mellon and brokerage Charles Schwab also helped lift the sentiment. And so definitely a very huge activity there on the US market, and kudos to the investors there. And this is exactly why it's important for you to have data at your fingertips and to have information, because things do change in a minute, especially in the financial markets world. We could be talking here, well, the market is going up, and all of a sudden could come down as well. So it's important for you as an investor, be it a local investor, and above all, an international investor. I understand that some of my friends who have been able to buy stock into the US stock market, and definitely they keep their fingers crossed all the time, because they have to see and get to know what's happening currently on the different stock exchanges in the United States, majorly the New York Stock Exchange, that is Wall Street. And definitely we as financial pledge our support to give you at least the best we can and give you a push at least into now the US stock market probably had some kind of impact on our market as well. I don't know, maybe not, but still our market here in Uganda soared on the first weekday of trading. This is evidenced by the All-Share Index, which moved up close to about 49%, and rather 49 points. And we had a couple of gainers as well that came out very strong on the first weekday of trading. So markets are improving, and of course trade is going on at the moment. As I speak, of course, you can buy yourself shares in different companies. You can be able to trade. You can be able to buy treasury bonds and instruments across East Africa just by simply getting to open yourself SCD accounts or CSD accounts respectively for you to get your day started. Now let's get into the Ugandan market here at the Uganda Stock Exchange as per the trades yesterday. We've already of course seen that the US market at the moment is in the greens, and definitely we are happy and excited about that. How about our market here? How has it been able to kind of cope with the difficult times? Of course, as we live in times of inflation and very high interest rates, looking at the central bank rates at 10% and so on and so forth. How is our stock market trying to thrive within this very tough economic periods? Now, the Uganda Stock Exchange last Monday, yesterday, had about 5 companies, big major companies participating in the trades there at the Uganda Securities Exchange, and the day ended with a balanced trade with 5 gainers coming on top and 5 bottom losers at the bottom. Now we have 18 listed companies, and amongst these 18, 8 of them are domestic, 8 of them are cross listings, mainly from Nairobi Stock Exchange, and then 10 of these are domestically listed here at the Uganda Stock Exchange. Now the leaders the leaders that gained actually were led by East African Breweries Limited, who led at a 22.99% share price appreciation after marking a closing price of 5,375.40 Ugandan shillings per share. Now, he was followed by Stanbic Bank Uganda, SBU, at a 5% gain. Interestingly, Stanbic Bank came back as a top gainer. And as well, if you check out some of the volumes here, Stanbic did well as well after having traded close to over 60,900 shares on the stock market. So Stanbic still, kudos to you. Of course, Stanbic has been improving its trades in the recent past. We don't know why yet, but definitely we can say that Stanbic is one of now the outstanding companies on the Uganda stock market, and you should check it out if you are wondering where to put your stock. Now, Centum Investment at 0.96% price appreciation also came in as a top gainer. And to balance things out here on our local companies index, MTN Uganda also came out at a 0.58% price appreciation there on the first day of trading. On the losing side, however, KCB came out last after having lost close to about 0.54% of their price and closing the day with about 1,226 0.86 Ugandan shillings, and followed by National Media Group, who came in at a 0.47% price depreciation. Then Wumeme, unfortunately, came in as a loser for the first time, I think, in about 2 weeks, after having lost about 0.45% of their price. And Kenya Airways at a 0.16% also came in as a loser. Now, regarding the top movers, which is also another critical segment, because we don't just mind about gaining and losing in terms of, the price. Of course, here we're looking at the pricing and seeing that the most valuable companies are highly priced, and sometimes, some of the least priced companies are also more valuable. And so we want to look at the movement. How much volumes did we have in each of these companies? Now, amongst the top movers, Wumeme recorded the biggest volume of trading on Monday after having traded close to about 305,600 shares on the stock market yesterday. And he was followed by Stanbic Bank. Like I said, Stanbic returning as a very active stock and actually the number one most traded on, at least for the last 3 months, came in as as also a top mover at 60,900 shares that were recorded on the counter here at the Uganda Stock Exchange. There was also MTN, who traded about 6,866 shares, followed by Bank of Baroda at about 400 shares that were traded. Well, Bank of Baroda, it's slipping a little bit compared to how we used to know Bank of Baroda. Yes, there's still a little bit of lagging. We need to see a little bit of more activity on Bank of Baroda there. But those were the top 5 movers, including Wumeme and Stanbic Bank, Uganda. Now, excuse me. Now, let's look at the USE index. The index on the Uganda Stock Exchange, that is the benchmark, which is the all-share index, came in as, of course, the biggest gainer there after having come in with a 49.81 points, increase, and that was a 4.12% appreciation for the day. The benchmark index, remember, is a market capitalization weighted index. In other words, we base on the market capitalization of the different listed companies to actually evaluate the value of the all-share index. Now, if it appreciates, it definitely means that the market capitalization on the Uganda Stock Exchange has definitely appreciated. And yesterday we are seeing that we had over 49.81 points that were added to the all-share index. Now, this is, if you've been following the stock market, this is the biggest gain on the all-share index we've had, at least within the past 4 weeks. Recently, we've had a slump in the performance of companies here on the Uganda Stock Exchange. And most cases, you've been hearing of negatives and declines in the all-share index, because definitely most of the companies were losing in terms of price. And when you lose in terms of price, definitely that comes back to your market capitalization as a company. So the all-share index improved by about 49 points, meaning generally the stock markets are moving to a bigger market capitalization because of the top gainers, like we've had Stanbic Bank coming as a gainer, and also MTN, who have really huge number of shares that are floated on the Uganda Securities Exchange. So multiplying their share prices by the current floated shares or shares outstanding definitely gives us a very good value on our market capitalization as an exchange here in Uganda. Now, the gain that what we are talking about is a daily gain, but it has pushed and rubbed off into a weekly gain now of about 3.07% on the all-share index. And when we look at still the 4-week loss, the 4-week loss has declined from we had about, 8%, 7% a few days ago. Now the 4-week loss is at 1.01%. And as well, the overall year-to-date loss has had very little impact at 11.49%, but still a little bit of impact there on the loss on the year-to-date. Now, regarding the local company index, because of MTN and Stanbic Bank, we're seeing that also the local company index went up at about 1.04%, reaching about close to 271.28 points, meaning our local stock is also not performing that bad. However, on a 1 week, the local company index is still on a loss of 0.38%. And on the 4 week, it's still on a loss of about 2.46%. That is the local company index. And in year to date, it still has a huge loss there to make up for, at least within this quarter of the year, at about 16.44% that has been lost. Now, why is the index very important? As we know already, the index represents aggregate performance of the companies that are listed on the stock exchange. And so having the Uganda Securities Exchange Local Company Index improve or so definitely means that investing in local companies is profitable at the moment. And so if our markets start to grow and we start having, for example, ETFs, already of course there are few in place, but not very popular as yet. But if we have ETFs in place, the exchange traded funds, we could have a local company exchange traded fund. In other words, you're going to have a whole basket where you can actually invest money in all the listed local companies if they're doing good generally. The advantage of that is that you're going to become less prone to risk because you diversify. You have options. You're investing in this company, in that company, and so if one company, let's say, loses, you're less impacted as an individual or as an investor. And so that is what we're looking at and where we should be heading as a market here in Uganda and in East Africa as well, if we are to make a little bit of progress on our markets. Now, let's look at Stanbic Bank Uganda, particularly in detail here, to know where and how can we take advantage of this gain. Now, Stanbic Bank Uganda has still a total market capitalization of close to 1.07 trillion, which has appreciated a little bit at a 4.97% representation of the market. And currently, it is the fifth most valuable on the Uganda Stock Exchange via market capitalization at the moment. Now, yesterday, the company gained a whole 1.00 shillings on its share price, ending the day with a 21 shillings share price, appreciating from 20.0 shillings there. That was a 5% appreciation in the price. After having traded, of course, about 60,900 shares, the company had a turnover yesterday of 1.28 million. This was the amount of money that was transacted on Stanbic Bank yesterday. Now, looking at the shares outstanding currently, the bank has 51.2 billion shares, and the market capitalization is now driven to 1.07 trillion Ugandan shillings after their price appreciation. Now, the company, after having closed at 21 shillings yesterday, the company still has a year-to-date loss because based on its initial price at the beginning of the year, which is 26.00, the company has lost about 19.2% of their price valuation. And however, they're still ranked number 12 in terms of year-to-date performance. So at least in the year-to-date, they're not doing so bad, but still not so good, and we hope for better. But coming in the 12th position there is Stanbic Bank in terms of year-to-date performance analysis. The company has maintained, however, the number one position in terms of the most traded on stock at the Uganda Securities Exchange within the last 3 months, from the 18th of July to the 17th of October 2022. Within this period, the company has traded about 25.4 million shares on the market, representing a turnover of about 531 million. I want you to first internalize that, because usually we don't take time to get to understand some of these figures, because you're looking at a company with a share price as low as 21.0 shillings. And within the last 3 months, they have had a gross turnover. In other words, the number of shares that have been traded multiplied by the amount of money that has been transacted on these shares of close to 531 million Ugandan shillings. That's a great deal of activity. And of course, kudos to Stanbic Bank there for having kept it high, especially on trading on the daily activities. Now, their highest volume within this period was 10.2 million shares, which was transacted on the 8th of August within the same period. And looking at the last 10 days of trading, the company has been intensifying even further their trading, having trading on the 17th, on the 16th, on the 14th, on the 13th, and the like. And so definitely that is Stanbic Bank Uganda stock for you. Comparing it with other financial institutions that are listed on the stock exchange here in Uganda, Bank of Baroda, Uganda, at a 213 billion capitalization, is still coming in a loss of about 11% in year to date, and their price is 85. Comparing them with Bank of Baroda, remember before Stanbic becoming the most traded on stock, Bank of Baroda was coming in the first place. And so Stanbic looks like it has pushed away Bank of Baroda. And also looking at their pricing, they have a much more affordable stock at 21 shillings, comparing that to 85. Definitely Stanbic is still the choice there in terms of affordability. Looking at equity, still very huge capitalization, 5.16 trillion. Activity is not that good compared to Stanbic, but also the stock there at equity is much more expensive at about 1,394 shillings per share. Still, Stanbic stands out in that aspect. And so there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, for Stanbic Bank Uganda, being a top gainer, also a top mover in yesterday's market performances. Now, looking at Wumeme yesterday traded on the negative side after it had lost about 0.45% on its stock price. Wumeme lost about 0.91, which it had actually gained last week, and closed at a price of 200.00. Fortunately, it hasn't crossed the 200 line yet, but yesterday Wumeme lost at 0.91 Ugandan shillings, closing at 200.0. Of course, you could close an eye and say, you know what, 0.91%, 91 shillings. No one wants to trade at that, right? So people would rather say, okay, I have 200,000 and I want 1,000 shares, rather than having those, smaller digits in there, to 200,000, 900 something. So maybe we could attribute the loss to that. But Wumeme is still one of the strongest performers still on the stock market here in Uganda. And yesterday alone, the company had about, let's see, how many shares? About 305,600 shares that were recorded, and the 61.1 million shillings turnover that was recorded on the trading yesterday. Now, the company has a total market capitalization of 325 billion and about 1.62 billion shares that are floated on the exchange. Currently, the company is the 10th most valuable and has maintained that position, I think, for a couple of days and weeks now on the stock market. Away from Wumeme, and of course, crossing to, let's see, MTN. MTN was a gainer, and MTN here had a very interesting trade. And looking at their volume, they had just about 6,866 shares, and about 1.26 million that was transacted on the company just yesterday. And currently, they're still the second most valuable at a 4.1 trillion Ugandan shillings, which represents about 19% of the entire Uganda Securities Exchange equity market there on the Uganda Stock Exchange. However, you should take note that MTN has lost quite lump sum in the last couple of days. Looking at their weekly performance, they have lost about 0.63%, and their 4 weeks performance, they have lost about 3.68%, and in 3 months, they have shed off about 3.61%. So you should take care of that as well while looking at MTN. Now, in summary, MTN had about the whole stock exchange, not just MTN, had about 373,000 shares that were transacted on the first weekday of trading and a total turnover of about 63.6 million, which is a little bit of a decline of about 74% in the volume and about 34% in turnover. Now, the Uganda Securities Exchange market capitalization currently is standing at 21.6 trillion Ugandan shillings. There you have it. That is information from the Uganda Securities Exchange. Of course, the trading is open and people are buying shares. So you can go on the exchange and be able to buy yourself some shares. All you have to do is open yourself an SCD account and the rest is history. We're going to take a quick breather. We return with Nairobi Stock Exchange and more of the headlines in the financial markets world. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Smart 24, driving business.